are talking about the moon episode. I'm going to briefly call back to that before we get into today's topic.
Okay.
Because last night I was sitting with the wife watching a bit of TV, and she looks out the window and there's the full moon, and she goes, "Oh."
So romantic.
She's like, "Oh, look at the moon, it's so beautiful." And without even looking, I say, "Don't trust the moon." And she turns and says, "What the fuck do you mean, don't trust the moon?" It's like, "Don't trust it, it's suspicious." And she thought I was a psychopath. And I had to have the whole conversation. I had to talk about the craters. I had to talk about the ringing like a bell.
You could have just went and had a wee nap and just let her listen to the podcast. You were explaining all this. And
She was not as accepting of my information as what you were. She was very much of, no, because, the moon, and it affects all life on Earth, and, it affects women and our cycles, and when I'm in tune with the moon, I'm in tune with nature,
but that's even more suspicious, surely.
Well, I say
why has it got so much power?
I say some close to cancelable things. I'm not touching the women are suspicious. I'm not getting on that bandwagon.
I'm saying the moon's more suspicious as a result.
I know. That's what I said. That's what I said too. Yeah. I said, you don't think that that's weird? She was like, "No, I think it's natural that, and I was like, that without the moon, the climate wouldn't be stable enough for life on Earth. You don't think that's weird?" But she didn't think it was weird, so maybe it's just me. Well, anyway, that's all I had to say about that. Let's talk about overdosing on drugs.
Well, not necessarily overdosing, but drugs in general. And well, we started talking about overdosing earlier in the week, just in general chit chat, me and Niall. And Niall said, "This is where this all came from." Niall said, "Sure, people have known about overdosing for 60 years."
Hang on. Let's rewind years. And you very quickly pointed out that that's the stupidest fucking thing I've said in a while. So
I'm a lot more sympathetic towards people who overdose on drugs in different ways we'll talk about. Yeah. But yes, I'm not sympathetic towards your 60 years.
Yeah, no.
So I went on a mission to prove that I was wrong by 600 years is what my estimate was. But when I looked up about how opium has been in the past, it turns out that it's been used to euthanize people, which is overdosing. Like, we're using it to kill people since like 1200 BC. So, good 3,000 years ago.
I screwed the pooch on that one. I definitely should have done a bit of. I should have at least had a cursory glance at Google before I said 60 years. I just thought, the swinging 60s. They were all at it.
Because I'm big into like Sherlock Holmes and stuff, and then that's all opium.
Oh, he was addicted.
He was a big opium head. Yeah, that was his thing. So that's when I knew about opium dens, and then I worked backwards from there.
But I also somewhat naively was thinking that overdosing only really became a thing when we started creating synthetic drugs.
No.
Some reason I had it in my head. I was like, the natural world. It's, even though there's so many thousands of poisons, natural poisons that can kill you, but I was like, it's natural, which is a load of shit. So I went down the rabbit hole then of looking up unusual ways that people have overdosed and things that people have overdosed on, and I've got a couple of interesting. I don't want to call them stories because they actually happen to people, but events.
It's not a story, really.
Yeah, I've got a couple of events.
Stories aren't all fiction, now.
See if it doesn't have a sword and a dragon, or a spaceship and an alien, then it's not really much of a story in my book.
What about When Harry Met Sally? It's an excellent film.
When Harry Met Sally is an excellent film. Mm-hmm. You got me there. And Yellowstone's so good. Like, we're going to tomorrow.
I'm sure there's a sword somewhere.
Tomorrow we're going to binge the last season of Yellowstone. It's just some of the best TV writing, probably, that I've ever seen. Have you seen it?
No, I still haven't watched it. My plan's on my list.
Amazing. But anyway, let's have a look at some of these weird stories that I've collated for you. I've got them here. So the first one that I've got is a guy overdosing on basically Viagra tablets. So it's not Viagra tablets that he took, but he took what the active ingredient in Viagra is, called sildenafil. So apparently you can buy this as like a dodgy off-brand instead of taking it as like, but it's still for erectile dysfunction.
Like, obviously anything you can overdose on in enough quantity, but like that's not something I considered.
It's not something that I would have considered either, but apparently you can buy, instead of getting it in tablet form, you can get it in like a liquid form. So this guy got the liquid form, like bought, some dodgy, like imported it from China or something, but he drank the entire bottle, which was more than 10 times the recommended dose, and it caused irreparable eye damage to himself, so he almost went blind.
He put his eye out with his dick, like?
Yeah.
Wapang.
Well, I feel like that would be a great promotion for the company. If that was the case, his sales would skyrocket. I don't think that's what happened. I imagine, because it's probably something to do with opening the blood vessels, is what I would imagine. So he probably just opened the blood vessels to his eyeballs.
I don't understand. I'm not a doctor. I'm not
or maybe
sure
it's about pressure, because I know like the pressure of your eyeball. Because I got like a suspicious, no, not suspiciously. Not everything is suspicious. I've got an unusually large like hole at the back of my eye. There's like a little spot at the back where all the nerves come in and out. So the optometrist said that mine's is bigger than usual. What are you laughing at that?
Contextually, that was a funny sentence.
But anyway, so I'm at a greater risk of glaucoma than the average person because of that.
Because you're a big hole.
Because of my big hole. So maybe it's something to do with the pressure in the eyeball. Maybe it's like it overpressurizes the eyeball.
I wonder. I'm actually interested in figuring that out later on.
I don't know. But anyway, so that's an overdose that you would never think of. You can overdose on penis pills,
wonder pills,
and possibly leave yourself blind from it. So,
well, if you've overdosed, the blind part's not really that big a deal.
Yeah, but I don't know if they overdosed in terms of like passing out or like dying or anything.
Oh, okay.
He didn't die. These are
I thought
people...
he died. I always think of it as a die thing in my head.
No, so overdosing doesn't necessarily mean that you die. It just means
you've taken too many.
You've taken over the dose and had an adverse reaction to it. So not everybody in these stories die as well. I should probably make that clear, because there's some stories about toddlers and stuff.
Oh,
so no, but they don't die.
Okay,
so
still not,
okay.
Still not good.
Yeah, it's not great. For sure, it's not great. Yeah, so let me see. What was that one about the toddlers? Let me find that.
Oh, yeah, go straight there, just yet.
Yeah, why not? I was going to say, let's rip the Band-Aid off. And that's kind of suitable, because what happened is that these toddlers, they got these things that they thought were little like Band-Aids, like sticking plasters, Band-Aids. So they were like playing around, putting plasters on themselves and taking them off. But the plasters were actually fentanyl patches. Which are used as really strong painkillers, but they just look like a regular plaster, like for first aid that you would put on. Oh. So they were playing around, sticking these patches to themselves, and both children overdosed with life-threatening complications. I don't know why I'm laughing. That's not funny.
Why you're laughing?
It's like an awkward laugh more than anything. I didn't really consider this when I was collating it, but
like. It's obviously this was left out. This is the parents' fault, obviously, in this scenario.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they got it from. But these are things, I presume it's in America that they're over the counter, that they get sold. Because I don't think you would get them over the counter here.
Definitely you would not. Definitely not. But like, I've had quite a number of questionable things in my household when I've had my children there. In the last years that I've had children. And not once have I ever left anything out that they could get, because that's just stupid. It's like bare bones safety stuff, But
yeah, well, I'm just reading the bottom part of the article, and it says, despite knowing for years about the drug's potency, it was not until after the double overdose that regulators issued a warning to doctors, patients, and parents about the dangerous patches, telling them to dispose of them in a safe manner and keep them away from uninformed people and kids. Like, surely if you're buying these things,
you imagine they're not going to be good for kids. Like,
I mean, that's like, now in the car manuals it says don't drink the engine oil. Like that's that level of, do we need to have this conversation?
Somebody need that conversation, so it's fine to be there. Is the thing.
That's the thing, though. All of these, like, someone had to drink the engine oil for that to end up in the car manual. But I don't know. I feel like if you're at that point, you kind of do need someone looking after you.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. There's no...
And the person looking after you should know.
We can't count on common sense, unfortunately.
Oh, this next one, I like this one. So, in 2009, there's an anti-smoking group that went into loads of like high schools, and they started handing out nicotine gum to pupils without the parents knowing. So they were like, here, if you're smoking, try and get off smoking. Here you go. Here's nicotine gum that you can use instead. So they've given out loads and loads of nicotine gum, and school
teenagers,
yeah.
Like, obviously they're going to eat the whole pack in one go. Like, this is like, again, this is just so stupid.
So basically it got passed around the school and ended up with a load of non-smokers. So there was a 14-year-old boy who was a non-smoker, and didn't consider it as dangerous, and just considered it as like chewing gum, basically. But he chewed 30 pieces in 1 hour, which was the equivalent of 900 cigarettes.
I'm laughing. It's so bad. I actually have my own story about this that I'd forgotten until you brought this up.
Really?
Yeah. So like, when I was like, I want to say 17 or 18, I smoked I started smoking when I was 14, and I was trying to quit when I was like 17 or 18. So I had the patches on, and as a teenager would be, went and got the patches, and I got the strongest patch, because that's what I need. I can't handle any of that weak stuff.
Yeah.
But then, so I was on the patches for like a couple of days, went out drinking, and just like 1 o'clock in the morning, somebody hands me a cigarette. I'm already drunk. Don't even think about the concept of, I've got a nicotine patch on that's like literally max strength, and I smoked like 4 cigarettes, and I was in bed for 2 days straight. That was 100% nicotine overdose that I had.
Really?
Yeah, 2 days straight.
See, that's so strange.
Awful.
I would not have really considered...
So much.
I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, but I never would have considered nicotine as one of the drugs that you really overdose on.
I know, me either, obviously.
There's people who back to back, like light their next cigarette off their cigarette before they finish it.
But I think the difference is it's pretty much impossible, I think, to overdose on nicotine from smoking. But once you introduce, like going directly into your body from the patch or from the gum or whatever, it's much, much easier.
Even that in itself, I find quite strange, though, because presumably, like, I would imagine that anything that you're using to try and wean yourself off an addiction would have to be less addictive. So how would it be more
This is
powerful?
the thing, and this is why, like nicotine replacement therapy, they all call it NRT. It was never worked for me. It was never what got me off cigarettes, because it was just like I was just moving it to another place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't making it any better. Other people it does, and the idea is that you start where you are and then you move down. But like you could just do that with the cigarettes.
But even at that, like, let's do the maths on this nicotine gum. So 30 pieces in 1 hour, the equivalent of 900 cigarettes. My math, that means that one piece of gum is worth 30 cigarettes.
Yep.
So why would you need one piece of gum to be like 30 cigarettes? That seems like too much.
Yeah, so again, the gum comes in like different strengths.
Okay.
And they obviously have the top strength one, which is for people who smoke like 40 a day. So they've given this out to the teenagers, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
That's fucking psychotic.
Well, the fact that they're giving them out to teenagers willy-nilly is psychotic in the first place, regardless of what strength it is. Like, it's what are teenagers going to do? Like, do you know what I mean?
It's mad. But anyway, the boy was hospitalised with severe stomach pain, and the doctor treated him, said that the boy could have died. And despite that, the school stood by the anti-smoking group and said that they supported the organisation's decision not to inform parents. The kids as young as 12 were being given up to 105 pieces of nicotine gum.
Mercy.
So,
I feel like now more than ever, but probably always really, but it feels like teenagers are given too much rope at this point. Do you know what I mean? In that scenario, especially, like it's always like, treat teenager like an adult. Do and talk to them like an adult and teach them how to be an adult, but they're not an adult. They do not have critical thinking skills.
No.
Like I didn't until I was in my mid-20s at least.
And even in your mid-20s, like when I look back, in fairness, in my mid-20s, I kind of got my head screwed on.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was about the time when I got my head screwed on.
But early 20s, I don't know me fucking ass from Melbourne.
That was a mess.
Useless.
I wouldn't trust myself.
Not all teens. All teens are useless.
Of course not.
I was useless as a teen.
And I was too, but like...
Yeah. I think treat teenagers like teenagers. Don't treat teenagers like adults. Otherwise, we would just call them adults.
Exactly.
But... Right, let's move on to the next one. I'm going to smash through all these because, we're
going to bang through them all.
Bang through them, and then we can have a chat at the end about, I don't know, we can look for the Barney message on it.
The Barney message.
Don't do drugs, kids.
I thought you meant Barney from The Simpsons.
Well, that is also...
The dangers of alcohol.
Yeah, you can tie that around on the drug addiction, for sure. So the next one is about Hold Your Wii for a Wii. It's basically a challenge in 2007 to try and get people to win a Nintendo Wii. So they had to drink as much water as possible without going to the bathroom. So there was one...
Nintendo Wiis were classically cheap. When they came out, it wasn't an expensive console.
I mean, it's still expensive enough that you would want a free one.
Yeah, I get that, but not to the extent of bursting your bladder. I'll do a lot of things, especially back then. I'm a huge Nintendo head, and I had a Wii on day one. But I would have done a lot to get that money to get it because I was only 19 or whatever when it came out. But I wouldn't have done a competition. Maybe I would have as a teenager. You're right. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't a teenager.
But it was classically cheap. It's not like a car. Or these competitions usually like a car.
Where you got to hold your hand on the car and the last person. That kind of thing. No, it wasn't that. It was just a Nintendo Wii. And unfortunately, this person actually died. But basically, it was a 28-year-old mother of 3 kids who wanted to win it for her kids.
Oh, this is mad sad, mate.
Yeah. I don't know why I started, I'm kind of regretting putting this one into the compilation here now. I'm just going to smash through it.
Power through it.
We're going to move on. Okay, so everybody had to drink a bottle of water every 15 minutes. The bottles became increasingly bigger. Eventually, the girl dropped out because she was getting a severe headache, and the pain drove her to tears. And she told her supervisor she was going home, where her body was later found. So the coroner ruled that the victim died of a water overdose. It's got a specific technical name, but it's a water overdose. So water poisoning is triggered when there's too much sweating or consumption of water, and it thins out your sodium levels in the blood. So severe headaches are a telltale sign. It can also cause seizures, coma, and death. So don't drink plenty of water, but don't
go
drink
overboard. Overboard's a funny word in that context, but
is there anything funny in that context?
No, nothing really.
Actually, why did we decide to talk about overdoses? That's a terrible idea for a podcast.
Honestly, when we were going into this, I thought we were going to talk about drugs, not just specifically overdoses.
Yeah, maybe we'll move away. We got enough time that I can just smash through the last. You know what? Let's make this last one the last one.
Okay,
and then we'll move away because this isn't so much about overdoses, just as a strange drug trend. So I'm sure people do overdose on it. But
is this a new drug you didn't know about?
It's a new way of drug supplements that people are doing. So meth heads in America have started doing a thing called wasping.
Wasping?
Yeah, so they get wasp killer spray and they either mix that with their methadone or they just take that as a methadone substitute. They spray it on hot sheets of metal and let it crystallize and then cook the crystallized wasp killer and take that as methadone. And that's so dodgy.
For audio listeners, I've been very quiet because I'm so shocked and like mad.
Yeah.
Like this is crazy. It's crazy. And like this is the part that I'll never understand is like I get, you know, wanting to up your high, and the whole point of drugs, like especially at addiction level, is that you're trying to chase that first high and how that felt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's an escapism as well.
I know what I'm saying. Like
and if people are in like
when you get into the weeds like that, you're really trying to get that one big high that you felt that first time. So like especially heroin, that's a big one. Where like, and again, I'm sympathetic and I understand, you know, things happen over time. But like, for me personally, like, you couldn't pay me money to try heroin because obviously I'd love it. Do you know what I mean? That's just how drugs are. You know?
And just now that you said heroin, I just realised that I give out the wrong information. It's not methadone that they're trying to replace; it's methamphetamines.
Yeah, you said meth heads.
Yeah, no, but then I said methadone.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
I think methadone is what they use to get people off heroin, isn't it?
Yes.
So, I got that wrong.
It's also what the bath salts were back in, like, 15 years ago, that craze, remember?
The thing that were creating the fucking zombie people?
Well, that wasn't really a case. That was one person and like
no, I think that was
bit
a
the
few
face
people.
off people or whatever.
I think it was a few people
But
instead of biting the faces off other people. Or was that a copycat?
That was such a weird thing. It was like, remember, all of a sudden overnight, this was like, you could buy this in the shop legally. And it was pretty much like Coke Light, you know, cocaine light, I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
I don't know much about the bath salts.
oh, really? That was a big thing. So, like, it was big gossip around Derry about it at the time because there was a shop in Derry that sold it. There was 2 of them actually. Both of them are not there anymore.
Oh yeah. And he got kneecapped.
Yeah, and it was because like this is completely legal at this point. It's made illegal.
Do we
thereafter.
need to explain what kneecapping is? Do people know in a global audience? Do people know what kneecapping is?
I mean, I guess it's pretty self-explanatory that your knees are shot out.
Well, in Ireland, and specifically Northern Ireland, we have paramilitary organisations who kind of do community policing, they would call it.
Well, I don't think that's the case in this scenario, and maybe this is what the rumor was. So I'm not saying I know this, and I don't even know if it's paramilitaries necessarily that's involved, but I'm sure it was. Like, but I'm being diplomatic for the sake of it, because I don't know the answer. But like my understanding is that because these people were selling this legally, it was hurting
the illegal drug
trade. So, you know, that was the real motivator, as opposed to like.
The real motivator and the stated motivator can often be 2 different things.
Yes, exactly.
Aren't they? But yeah, you know, that's why I said community policing, because there's enough guys that just pay them off. But some paramilitary organisations are more true to their morals than others, I would say. Some of them are very much don't want any drugs in the community at all, and that is they're pretty hard line on it. And then there's others who the people in the organisations are dealing drugs and they just don't want the competition. So it's a bit of a mix. But anyway, that they would go and kneecap people, which is blowing out their kneecaps. Shooting their kneecaps out.
It always makes me like cringe a wee bit in my legs. Do you know what I mean? You're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Awful.
It's not great.
Awful stuff. But yes, so the bath salts thing were massive here for like, I want to say like a summer.
Yeah.
And it was just mad. But like you said about zombies, like that's why I asked about a new drug situation, is that I was reading about one called crocodile, which is some sort of Russian concoction.
Yeah. Tell me more about this. You said something about it turns them into like that fucking doctor from Spider-Man.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is like what I've read about it is that, and this is brand new information to me, so fact check me all you want, but like whatever way they mix some sort of opiate with like paint thinner, alcohol, like random stuff, and whatever way it works is that eventually once you start to like take it too much, it turns your skin like a dark green and it gets scaly. Like, it's the weirdest. Like, why would you like? If my skin started turning green and scaly, I would take a big look at myself and say, "What am I doing with my life?" Obviously,
yeah.
But
you would think that at that point you would take steps to stop, but then you see so many drug addicts and they just look dead.
Yeah.
They look like they're like a corpse. Excuse me. But you wonder at what point do you look and go, I got to make a change? Because some people do. And
I think like just like we've touched on before, like a lot of these people are, you know, not emotionally equipped to even see that in themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
It's
a
not
fair
even,
point.
It's not even just about the addiction, it's that they were vulnerable in the first place. So, like, you know, that's just sad all around, really.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah, so like our critical thinking skills don't always translate over to other people, you know, as the word goes. And sometimes that's a good thing. People don't think like us.
Yeah. I think I thought that we could find the lighthearted, but like, I thought, yeah, we can have a joke about drug addiction and overdosing, but it's really just turning a bit heavy.
It is heavy, but the thing is, it is
heavy.
heavy. I mean, and it's like there's no real like strong answer to it, and you know, obviously,
I was like, they overdosed on water. No, it's not. It's not really.
It's like it goes very against your ideals of government control, but realistically, when countries have like legalized and overseen those things, it has been better. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? When there's been regulations involved.
Funny enough, that's actually where I do agree with regulatory practices, is because I think having drugs illegal is more government intervention than if a government legalized recreational drugs, tax the shit out of it, use the taxes, they help
the people who vulnerable.
Kind of, yeah, because the people who are vulnerable, they're going to get it and they're going to get fucked up anyway.
Yeah,
you know, and if it's recreational, you'll have more sensible people will maybe dip into it recreationally. But
if it's regulated, we're not getting things like wasp killer and stuff, and
exactly.
you know, like crocodile laced with paint in her and stuff. That's the part where things get murky. You know,
yeah.
When drugs are drugs, like drugs are drugs and drugs are drugs. You know what I mean? But it's really
whenever they're cut,
it becomes dangerous when it gets cut. Exactly when people are maximizing profits. That's where the real danger comes from these days.
So many times it feels like every couple of years you're hearing about
something new.
Yeah, do you
some
remember,
new mad thing.
Yeah, it was maybe 15 years ago in where we're from, that there was what were they called? Were they blue Mitsubishis or something like that? Or blue pills anyway. But they were leaving people super depressed, real bad trips. And there was just an epidemic of people just taking these things and killing themselves.
Gee, I did not know about this.
Yeah, they were taking these, they were blue pills, and I feel like they were supposed to be like ecstasy.
But it's another one, I know
they were cut with something, and people were just taking real bad turns. They were throwing themselves off bridges, they were hanging themselves. And it's like, if people wanted to have that kind of high or that kind of experience, then if you have it regulated, if you have companies that are doing due diligence, if you have recommended dosages that you can say, you know, this is the max that you should be taking, and you can have a good time. If you take any more than this, you're going to get a bad time. I think you would mitigate especially a lot of like inexperienced people, like teenagers and stuff like that, who are going to find a way to try it if they want to try it.
This is it, and not even. And a lot of the time, it is just
having a little bit of sensible oversight, isn't it? We just realised the recording went down there, so we got our half-hour hourglass.
So look,
it's for sure.
Look at the description of what I bought. 30 minutes. It says 30 minutes.
That's halfway done. That's for sure.
At most.
That's a 1 hour hourglass there, buddy.
Look at the description of it, though. It says 30 minutes.
It does.
I didn't make a mistake there, which I'm prone to do.
Man, we suck at making half-hour episodes. We're doing so bad at it.
And like just on the content, like this is a great example. Like ordering online, I really like it's. I have made so many mistakes, and especially my biggest mistake generally is, and I've got better at it because now I have like a tape measure and a ruler like nearby nearly at all times, because I kept buying things that were comically small, like comically small. I bought a rug online, and it was just like, oh, I'll just get this nice wee rug. And it wasn't like it was cheap or anything.
The napkin.
It was about the size of like maybe 2 napkins. Like it was so comically small.
Doormat.
It was smaller in diameter than the length of my cat. Like that's how small it was. And like about a month later, I bought like a jug. So I'll get a jug to make some juice and put it in the fridge. You know, it came, and again it was like about a half pint worth of a jug. Like, it was so, again, comically small. That's when that was the breaking point for me, where I was like, I'm measuring everything out in my head before I order it, and looking at the measurements and doing it on the ruler so I don't misconstrue it. Because like, I really good at maths, but for some reason I'm really bad at like eyeballing measurements.
But you're not much of a building things kind of a person.
I'm not at all.
I'm quite lucky because I've had to do so much of that through work. I've developed a good eyeball for the size of things now, so I can sort of order online, and it kind of comes what it should be. But if something says it's a 30-minute hourglass,
do you expect it to be 30 minutes?
I would expect that to be a 30-minute hourglass, and it looks quite nice, you know? It doesn't look like a piece of crap.
No, it matches the decor of the room.
Yeah.
I chose it for a good reason. It was, again, I didn't cheap out on this one.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand that at all. But we'll just try and wrap up as quickly as we can. So, what I was saying about the my viewpoint on things, I don't know whenever it stopped recording, but that I would be quite anarcho-libertarian about things. So
yes.
I kind of believe that the government should be very hands-off. It should just be an administrative role for facilitating the people of a country to live life whatever way they want to live. Mm-hmm. So they shouldn't really be imposing so many laws and saying, oh, it's for your own safety, it's for your own security, when really it's about control, you know? So whenever it comes to recreational drugs, well, that's what I was saying, as long as the vulnerable people and, you know, like kids and the disabled people and people who don't really have, you know, their whole head there, as long as they're being taken care of and looked after, I think most people should be free to live life whatever way they want, so long as they're not harming anybody else, whatever they want to do. You know, it should all kind of be legal, whether that's on the far right of the spectrum or the far left of the spectrum.
These days,
politically, you know, it's like,
I don't think there is a spectrum anymore.
no, I don't know, but there is certainly there's seems to be two different two different camps in the world at the minute, or in the Western world at the minute, for sure. But I think both of them should really be able to do whatever they want to do and live life however they want to live, unencumbered, as long as they're not harming anybody. But then you get into the philosophical debate of, oh, what is harm? But you know what I mean, by and large. So I would be for the legalization of a lot of recreational drugs, but also the education of people on how to use it, you know? Because I think that's the thing. If you tell people, oh, you're not allowed these are illegal, you can't know anything about it except for this, that they're bad, they're really bad, these are really bad. And
now it's mystical, now it's a secret, and now it's like, certain people are drawn to, I'm not allowed to do that, so I'm going to do it. And I have a tendency to that sometimes as well, of just like, if somebody tells me not to do something, like, well, no, I really want to do it.
and I really do believe that there are some drugs that are very, very beneficial. I wouldn't be a marijuana guy. I tried it when I was a teenager, and it just sends me straight to sleep.
You're not really a drug guy at all.
No, but I tried them whenever I was a teenager and when I was younger. You know, I certainly went through, you know, the phase of dipping my toe in the water.
We all did.
But cannabis just like doesn't work at all for me. It just sends me straight to sleep, and it's not a good time for me. But I can see how much it helps a lot of people. It helps loads and loads of people, and it was illegal for so long just because it's a weed. Like, it grows on the sides of roads, and they couldn't control it, so they just.
My understanding was that
illegal.
That it was. If I'm right in saying, it's not even about alcohol or prohibition. It was about paper or something, wasn't it? Yeah. It was like, because it was like big paper banned it because of the hemp, because people are starting to use that instead of whatever.
Oh yeah,
it was something really specific and weird. That was like the origin of its ban. It was nothing to do with the drug itself. It was about manufacturing. And it was very twisted that way. I might be completely wrong, and this might be somebody else's conspiracy theory that I have just taken as fact.
Oh, I like it. I'm there for it.
But that's a memory that I have of reading about that, of some description.
See, my thinking of it was that it was fundamentally unregulatable because it just grows so wild that it was known as a weed, you know, because it like grows on the roadsides, it grows anywhere, you know, like it's very
in
easy.
different climates than here, obviously.
Yeah, not here. In Ireland, you're going to have a hard time. but in the right climate. And then they tried to like put spin on it. Like they called it marijuana. They try and make it sound more like Southern American. They try to like, discredit the plant.
It's suspicious.
Yeah, stuff like that is just. I think that's the government going too far, personally. But I think there's a lot of other things like hallucinogenics. That really helps a lot of people in terms of getting their heads straight. And if they're in a bad place and they get to see the world in reality in a different way,
different viewpoint.
Loads of people have like transformative. Like the ayahuasca trips and stuff like that. I really have no problem with that. I think it's great. People opening up their mind, the possibilities of the universe. And I'm not a mumbo jumbo guy, but
a wee bit you are.
I don't think that
I'm way more than you are. To be fair,
I think I'm more of a scientific kind of guy. But
I'm all about vibes.
But I'm very open to the idea that humans don't know everything that's going on, and if we can open up our mind a little bit more than our own closed off sort of ideas of how the world works, so we can only see. In fact, even with all of the instruments we have, I think we can only detect like 5% of the universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it? We don't know what the rest is. So I think if we're able to open up our mind, and if that's meditation, if it's drugs, if I sometimes go down the rabbit hole of thinking like every time that we imagine something, if there's a multiverse, then if there's a multiverse, every time that we imagine something in our heads and visualize it in our heads, are we looking through like a multi-dimensional window basically into another existence where that has happened?
I don't think of a multiverse situation. For some reason, that's too science fiction for me to like get stuck into in my head.
It sounds science fiction now because fucking Marvel just rode that horse into the
so
ground.
hard.
But before that, I used to think about this before Marvel did it. Now I don't really like thinking about it so much.
But like, I always think of like, it's we say we can only perceive 5% of the universe.
Yeah.
My sort of weird thought that is sort of intrusive in that way is like, when we have an imagination or we have a thought, like, what's to say it's not just happening in like right here and now? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
What to say? This isn't a thought. This isn't an imagination. I get all twisted. Like I told you, like I had a weird dream the other night about seeing like a big cat, and like my dreams are classically mundane. By the way, I never have like weird mad dreams. I have the most. Like I see a big cat and I'm happy about it. That's it's like the extent of my dreams. But
and then your son woke you up and started telling you about big cats.
Yeah, so I don't know if there was a shared dream situation there. I just like that. I just like that sort of feeling. But like, yeah, exactly. Because of that coincidence, or is it a coincidence? Did that really happen in the night? And I just lived a different life for a minute.
Or was there a big cat just going window to window in your house?
When Nathan falls asleep, does Nathan wake up somewhere else? Do you know what I mean?
I love that shit. Absolutely love that shit. But there's all this. I'm going to get it back into conspiracy theories again. There's the CIA had these people that were doing like astral projection and stuff, and they were able to like see things that were happening in different rooms. Like the CIA and Russia both had their own programs of these people. That like there was one guy specifically who had like a massive percentage of that he was able to like predict things that were going on in other places, and then when they went and checked it out, it really happened.
Is this that boy they stole from Mexico? I talked about this a couple of weeks ago with you. You didn't know, but because somebody brought this up in on a call that I was on. We're just talking crap, but they say they were looking through the CIA files and apparently that were released, and apparently there was some boy in Mexico that they like kidnapped pretty much because he could see into the future. Like astral projection, exactly, and like 10 out of 10 every time he said something that happened.
See, this is.
I know you're saying about like being able to go there and exist for a second.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
See it and then come back and say this is what this is and this is what this is.
Yeah, but not. It wasn't like in the future.
It was in the moment.
It was like.
Maybe this is what this is too, and I've got the wrong end of the stick. But yes,
I don't think ESP is the correct term for it. Maybe it is, but. Yeah, there was a whole CIA thing, and then the Russians had them. But then the guy started going off on, like, you know, going to other planets and seeing other civilizations and, like, going to the moon and seeing aliens on the moon. And it's, you know what? I don't have the time. We're already over that.
Just one question. Do you believe he's seen those things and they were true, or do you believe that he was making it up? Just sort of, that's
the fact that he had such a success rate that the CIA hired him, I think, speaks.
I don't know
volumes.
about that. I again, I live my life by whatever can be explained by incompetence is the easier answer. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like this guy might have been just a good swindler.
Well,
and,
yeah,
like,
maybe
people are just so quick to like believe stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I believe in a lot of crazy stuff. So it's not as if I'm saying it like couldn't exist. I'm just saying, like,
that is possible.
You know, I work backwards in my head.
It's 100% possible. Sure, I read the other day there was some guy who just used to send invoices to these massive companies that, like, in the companies, just because they had so much going on,
I know,
they were just fucking paying it. And the guy made like $5 million.
But he got sued for
just by like sending invoices to
I don't
Facebook.
agree that he should get sued for that. I feel like that's a level of swindling that's like, you know, he's chanced his arm.
Yeah.
You know, nobody really got hurt.
And if he writes down, you know, like services rendered or whatever, but if the service is him sending the invoice,
exactly,
technically they just paid a lot of money for a guy to send them an invoice.
Yeah, the services rendered invoicing.
Yeah. I would love to see what it was that he said that he had done in the invoices.
Yeah, because that might be the murky part. They lied about that. But then the other one, very similar, is people who invite, like, world leaders and celebrities to their weddings and stuff and just send it to their press secretary. So what happens, or their person,
and they just get a gift sent
their handler, so they just get, we're obviously not going to this random person's wedding, but we'll send a gift in case it's important, you know, without even looking into it.
Yeah, I did see something on the internet about that, you know, saying, oh, you know, just invite billionaires.
Obviously,
to
it's probably very much vetted and it just doesn't happen like that anymore. But I'm sure that was a thing for like a couple of years before everybody started talking about it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because just yesterday I was chatting to the manager in the Playhouse Theatre, because I'm looking at the organising like gigs for under 18-year-olds to perform and stuff. I was up chatting there, and she said that at her wedding last year, her and her husband invited Ian McKellen, because they're big Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so they just invited him for the fun.
But he wrote them a letter and
nice.
Give them their signature. And just nice guy.
That's
Ian
very
McKellen,
nice.
You know,
I like that.
Very wholesome. And they didn't do it from a place of like trying to
swindle them.
Yeah. They were just like, oh, we would love Ian McKellen to be at our wedding, and invited him.
Yep.
And
I think that's quite
a really
sweet.
Nice letter.
That's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, that's
on
good
both
stuff.
sides. I'm saying
that's good stuff. I like that.
Going in with those right intentions makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's it. When you're not just trying to swindle him.
You shouldn't really be swindling Ian McKellen.
No. You shouldn't swindle Ian McKellen. Drink enough water, but not too much water. Don't eat wasp spray.
Don't eat wasp spray. That's a good one.
I think those are the three main takeaways from today. Will we leave it at that? I think
Let's leave it at
good.
that.
I think that's some pretty good lessons we've learned today together.
Yes, indeed. We'll talk about something else next time.
Yeah.
And
next time we're going to talk about how hard it is making friends when you're over 30, isn't it? That's our next thing we're going to do.
Yes, indeed.
So tune in for that.
I was about to start talking about it as if, let's start now.